The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Walk on down the road, the Afterlife Road. Brought to you by WKTV, I'm Wayne Thomas. Welcome to another Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters Paranormal Podcast. Buckle in as we delve deep into the obscure.
I'm Kim Kolean. Please keep an open mind about things you might not easily believe as we explore the mysterious.
I'm Brandon Hoezee with Kent County Paranormal, and thank you for joining our forum in search of paranormal possibilities.
Brandon first noticed Afterlife Road, a team of paranormal investigators from Michigan State. He was the first one to notice them. They're not at all like any other team I've been on. They're much different. They're not boring. They produce a web series that is seamless. It's very professional. And they take viewers on a journey, sometimes running, falling, dropping the camera. I found myself crying with them at Bath Cemetery, and at times scared. It's a documentary style. I compare it to Blair Witch Project. Brandon says it's much better than Blair Witch. Brandon?
Yeah, it's a much better, like the Blair Witch is always supposed to be the found footage genre, so it's much better than cameras looking up their noses and shaking cameras.
I was going to say, we're Blair Witch minus the snot.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah. I'm going to have to watch Blair Witch again.
No,
Is there some gross stuff in there?
That's probably the one shot we're skipping.
Oh, yikes.
You can stick to us, I guess.
Yeah.
And I say you can put your films on a loop and play them at Halloween. Kim, you might want to do that. But I think they're PG rated because of their language sometimes. So if you want your kids to watch it, you might have to screen it first. But
Right.
I know Kim watched a bunch of your stuff.
I did today. I enjoyed it. I couldn't stop watching.
Well, I hope his enthusiasm has not been deflated by the social circumstance. Ben Goldman from Afterlife Road. Ben, we want you to talk about you, your team, what it is you do, how you do it. But first, I want to talk about The Missing Show, episode 12. If people go to the whole Picture podcast, you were on before, but they're not going to find your show. And we took it down out of respect for one of your members.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Just explain that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, we have some members that were with us, no longer with us. But we have a great team, still original members, still standing. Myself, Devin, Sarah, great people. So, yeah, going strong tonight.
Going strong.
Tonight is going to be our 80th episode that we film. We've done like well over 100 investigations. Not all of them are filmed out of respect, like you said, for some people. A lot of what we do is for respect for the people, both living and dead. And so, yeah, will be the 80th episode, and we're going strong. So
I like how you talk about that respect for the living and the dead. You know, that was always my goal too. Yeah. And we did this out of one of your members, respect for his privacy or their privacy. And they can still find the 12th episode if they go to the journal and they just want to listen to it. But we took it down. And so we're going to do another whole new show tonight. And last time you were here, you left and went and did some stuff with Brandon. You guys went and investigated some stuff.
Yep, that was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Now, it was
just
like,
about a year
Feels
ago.
like it's
10,
been a
11
year
months
since
ago.
I've been on the podcast myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This whole
Yeah,
COVID
that
thing.
was pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, Brandon found out he's an essential worker.
Yeah.
So he's been working when everybody else has
I've been working the whole time, yeah.
Yeah, everybody else on forced vacation, but not him.
Yeah.
So we're glad he's back. Yeah, he's one of the regulars here, so he'll be back now.
Yeah.
Now, you guys left the studio last time, about a year ago, like you say, and tell us what happened. Where'd you guys go?
yeah, that was actually for our 50th episode. It's kind of funny. We always come on the podcast coincidentally at like a milestone. Like right today we
Yeah.
today we got to 1,000 subscribers,
Oh, nice.
and we're filming number 80. And then last time it was like the big 50. And you know, we don't come out to the west side of the state too often, so we don't get to. You know, every area has like a few famous legends, and it's very easy for us to just do those first when we're doing like local legends that are well known. But out here, we don't come here often, so there's still some that we haven't gotten to. So last time we did the Ada Witch legend, which is a pretty well known legend, and there's the love triangle gone wrong sort of thing where this woman was discovered to have an affair, and her husband killed the guy, and then her, and then she was buried in a cemetery, and then they say there's 3 haunted locations: the place where she was killed, on the road, the woods she was dumped in, and then the cemetery she was buried. So they say all 3 are haunted, but the cemetery is very patrolled by the cops. Because it gets vandalized, unfortunately,
Right.
because the legends. So we did the park where it says she was dumped, and they say on a full moon, you can see the fight happening all over, like in front of you. So it was a full moon that night, and we went out, and it was pretty interesting. We got a few interesting voices on the spirit box, nothing too wild, you know. Spirit box alone isn't ever really anything to prove a haunting or anything. But we did hear some moaning, Brandon, I think I remember. Or at least Ryan did. That seemed to be... we were talking about it in a moment. I believe you and Ryan thought it was coming from the spirit box, but I could have sworn it was audible. It was this moan sort of voice. And on the camera... It was definitely louder on my camera, which was like 10 feet away from the spirit box, than it was on the camera solely there to record the spirit box audio. So it did appear to be disembodied and not from the spirit box itself. But then we found, we saw this bright light, and we didn't know what it was. And then we approached, and it was a car that came in, and we were like not totally prepared to, you know, see some strange people in the middle of the woods on a full moon.
Right.
And then it turns out it's this family. And they say, "Are you witch hunters?" And we're like, "Close, we're ghost hunters." But, and then they were looking for the witch. And they actually had permission to investigate the cemetery that usually you don't get permission for. And they said, "Yeah, we have permission as long as we don't like bring bright lights or anything because of the houses around it." So we did sort of this stakeout there with a thermal imaging camera. So we didn't have any lights on, and we were waiting there until midnight, and it was pretty wild. Right at midnight, like almost on the nose, and we're whispering because we don't want to disturb the houses. And right at midnight, some little girls that were with them, it was like a 3-generation family, some older folks, some middle-aged, and some kids. And the kids kind of wandered, as they do, were looking around on their own. And when we were like, "Oh, it's midnight," they, like almost on command, started screaming and running back. And they could have sworn they saw some white misty thing coming from the back of the cemetery. So Brandon and I and a member who used to be on the show, we went back, and we saw like what looked kind of like a flash, but we ruled it out as, there's houses there. But then we heard loud footsteps walking right in front of us, and we're on the other end of the cemetery from the family, right? And I can see on the thermal camera the people on the complete opposite end of the cemetery, perfectly clear. You can see their heat signatures, you can see them. I point in the direction of the footsteps, which is right in front of us. There's nothing, no animal.
Mm-hmm.
There were no bushes, no like.
I mean, there was like a little bit of trees right there, but it's like, and you could see the house behind, so it wasn't like that thick of a wooded area.
Yeah.
With how big it sounded it's either a person walking or like a deer. It's something big because you can hear it walking.
It was circling us too, if you remember.
Yeah.
We heard it there, and then we heard it behind
and
us.
we're following with the thermal. We're getting no heat signatures whatsoever. We should be at least be picking up something, some sort of heat from the the sound of it walking around. But we
If you
didn't.
look at the footage, you hear the
Yeah.
footsteps, and then I suddenly turn around because I'm pointing on this end of the cemetery because I hear it like behind us. So that was like the weirdest footsteps because like
Yeah.
usually you can disprove the thermal camera. We haven't caught anything paranormal on it. It's just useful to disprove
Mhm.
stuff, especially outdoors.
Yeah.
You one time I forget where, but we thought we heard something, and then team member Drew, he says, "Oh, I just saw some eyes," and then we point the thermal, and there's a deer, and we're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a deer walking through there. There's no, like, we're going to pick up a deer or something. There's nothing,
Yeah,
It was definitely
debunking is a
bigger,
big
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
Brandon's
I thought
great
one
at
of the kids was
debunking.
like wandering off again.
Yeah.
And it was like the kid, but there were
We
no
would
people.
have picked up their heat signature.
Well, I want to fill in some of the details about the Ada Witch because there really are 100 plus versions of the story. You told about the triangle. And I think that's pretty much the story. But it's Finlay Cemetery, 2 Mile Road in Ada, and it's either late 19th or early 20th century that it happened. There's varying stories. And it's a Sidman Park and fields along Honey Creek Road where they hear female screams and male cries, whether it's these two combating each other, lover and husband combating each other or what, but they hear all kinds of voices. And you apparently picked up something that was maybe.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was the only time we've caught something like a bad word on the spirit box.
Oh,
Yeah, we had to censor it.
I'm trying to remember what that one was. No.
oh.
It's been a while since we've done it. So I
Oh,
didn't
well, I've been
review it.
called
Yeah.
names, so.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
called every name in the book too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was. We got like a female voice, and we're like, "Oh, are you around us? Where in the cemetery are you?" And it said, "I'm up here." Blank. Yeah.
I'm up here, you so-and-so.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I looked, and she wasn't there. So.
That's a great story. Like you say, it's a legend. It's one of our local urban legends. And then,
And that's like, well, at least to go into another one, is like, because we started with that one. I think a lot of it's a tulpa energy, and what that is, it's kind of like, it's an urban legend that starts, which there's no basis in reality. When you have enough people go there and feeding the story, it kind of creates an energy itself. And that's like another place we're going to go and investigate is going to be Hell's Bridge. And like that's like another one where I think it's another tulpa. There's no proof of that story of the murdering of the children, but you have enough people going out there believing in that and creates that energy there. And I
Right.
think that's probably what Ada Witch and the Hell's Bridge story probably both are. I think they're
yeah,
both
we're
more of a
going to bring
tulpa.
up the Hell's Bridge again because, like you say,
Or,
you guys are all
well, I'm
going
gonna say,
out there.
or you have people going out there conjuring something and maybe bringing something up too,
Yeah.
conjuring.
because it's in a legend spot. So they may bring some spirit there that wasn't originally there, originally part of the story.
Well, I've went to this a cemetery in Ada, right next to the Thornapple River. I was
Yeah.
out there fishing. I thought I'm going to take a shortcut. I'm going to go up this cliff and go through the cemetery up to my vehicle. I got almost to the top, and I'm like pulling myself up. It's so steep, my son and I, and all of a sudden we started getting stung by nothing. By nothing we could see. It wasn't bees. It wasn't any sort of plant. All over our body. And it took me the longest time to put this together. But up on the top there, somebody had vandalized the cemetery and pushed the gravestones,
Oh no.
tombstones over the cliff. And I think the spirits were taking it out on us. I think
Wow.
that was a paranormal experience. But it was right in Ada, and it was a cemetery, but it wasn't the one that you guys went to.
Well, that's interesting because Brandon was talking about the tulpa sort of stuff, and perhaps one of the most like urban legendy sort of place we've been is called Blood Road in Metamora, and it's all so beyond urban legendy. It's this road, and yeah, it's a very creepy road, but most creepy roads. If you're in a small town, you want to pick a place to create a legend, you're going to pick the one creepy road that's very narrow, as the big drooping trees. But, they say this woman is in the swamp and she got killed, and there used to be an asylum that's no longer there that there's no evidence of. And then at a certain time of night, she'll rise from the swamp, and then monks will chase you down the road, all this crazy stuff. But then we went there once, and we actually had things happen, but we were there, and then the person that was driving us actually got like very ill, very sick, so we had to cut it short. So then we went back again during the day, and the area that he got sick at and we had to leave, we actually found some pentagrams and crazy symbols like etched into the trees, both marked in and like physically etched in. And then during the nighttime when we were there, very similar thing to what you said, we felt like bugs that weren't there, and then like we heard hissing, like small hissing, like as if bugs were hissing at us, like, but like not a bug noise, it was like a hiss, like but as if it was like flying around us, but like there were no bugs, and it wasn't like a bug noise, it was like a loud hiss. And it wasn't captured on camera, none of the noise. And then right after that we heard like loud footsteps charging at us, and there was no one. So pretty similar thing, both of what you said, the weird bug sort of thing, and then the tulpa energy. Could that have been similar type of thing? I don't know.
Blood Road. It's got a good name.
Yeah.
That's a good name for a legend. You also went to 7 Gables Road, which if you hear a scream, it means certain death.
Yeah, cool story about 7 Gables. Tomorrow actually is our very first public event that we're hosting, and we're doing a public ghost hunt event tomorrow. A lot of precautions and stuff, a small group due to the pandemic, obviously, but it's our first public event, and we're doing a public ghost hunt at 7 Gables tomorrow night. So I'm looking forward to that. That's a cool road. There's all sorts of stuff there. There's even extraterrestrial sightings. There's a famous Bigfoot sighting, like right down the road from 7 Gables back in I believe the 60s. So, yeah, and it was actually featured in
I was
many
gonna say,
books.
like, a lot of times there's a lot of places that are like that. There's it's like a whole X-Files, kind of where you're getting sightings of like everything. It seems like a lot of this paranormal stuff is interconnected.
Maybe
somehow.
some kind of portal
Yeah.
in that area.
Yeah.
Different
Or
things
maybe
coming
Bigfoot's
through.
a spirit of, a different being at one point too. Maybe that's why it's so hard to find.
That's interesting. I never heard that take on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because we were talking to like a well-renowned like psychic that we worked with in the past, and she hasn't shared this like publicly, but we were talking about 7 Gables. Just it came up as it always seems to, and we're kind of conflicted as a team about 7 Gables because every time we go, everyone except for me has weird stuff happen. I've never had anything happen there, but when we went, everybody else that was there, every other team member, heard a loud moaning sound that caused them to run away from the gate. And I'm just still at the gate. I'm like, hey, why did you guys run?
All right.
Because I literally didn't hear it. But they heard it so loud that they ran. And one of the members, she's no longer a member of the team, but she always jokes that she's not a runner. And she always says, I've ran 2 times in my life, and that was one of them. And
Oh no!
and then as we were leaving, we kind of parked incorrectly, and we got a lot of hate comments about this because the person that drove us drove a Mustang and didn't have a shovel in the back and parked it in the snow, so the Mustang got stuck in the snow, and we had to shovel it out with coat hangers, and then I had to knock on this creepy guy's door to borrow a shovel, and then he's like laughing at us, and he had a scary dog, and it was a mess. But we were kind of stuck there for the day, and while we were shoveling the car out of the snow, they saw someone in the middle of the road, and then they disappeared. And I was looking there, I didn't see anyone, but 2 people at the same time both saw an apparition. And then as we were leaving the road, at night, after a nighttime investigation, after being there for like 6 hours unintentionally. As they're backing out, they see a white figure like mist following our car, and I'm like, where? Where? And then the whole car is like right there. I'm looking, I'm filming. Where?
It's the whole thing though, is because it depends who it shows to. Like we've had it, like our team, we got 5 of us all looking in one location. 2 of us can see it, see the shadow figure, see this complete full form, apparition, and the other ones can't see it. So like it does happen. Like it will show itself to certain people, but not to other people.
Yeah, and that was they had a lot of experiences that night.
Yeah.
I didn't. So then they wanted to go back on a day when it wasn't snowing, and I really didn't want to, because I'm like, I'm one of those people that's like, I don't want to go back to a place unless there's a reason, because I'd rather just experience new places and new sort of stuff. But we were in the area, and an investigation fell through, so I'm like, okay, we'll go back. And we went, and nothing happened that investigation, which is normal. Even places that are very active,
Sure.
you can go and nothing happens.
Right.
So then I was like, see, that's proof. This place isn't haunted. And then they're like, no, that makes it even weirder, because last time so much happened, and this time I'm like, no, nothing happened last time, guys. And they're like, yes, all this stuff happened, and we've been conflicted forever. And then I find this, we were talking to the psychic, as I was saying, and I said, yeah, they all say it's haunted. And she's like, oh, I've never had a paranormal experience there. And I'm like, oh, see, this is proof. And she's like, but I've had extraterrestrial experiences there. I'm like, what? Yeah, and crazy story that she told us. And I don't know if she hasn't said it publicly, so I don't know if she really wants it told. But then I found a famous Bigfoot sighting was in the newspapers. It's been
7 Gables Road area.
Well, it was it's featured in Weird Michigan, the book. It was in the same city that crossed in front of that passed through a farm, is connected to the same woods that 7 Gables runs through. So it's not on the road itself, but it's on another road that goes through the woods, same woods. So in the same woods that 7 Gables is in, there's a famous Bigfoot sighting.
There's so much synchronicity in this industry. It's like paths keep crossing.
Yeah.
I want you to explain a little bit more the dynamic of your team. You're Michigan State students, so I think the team is bigger, but you use a smaller team to film. Is that how it works?
Yeah, we're Michigan State students, and Michigan State has a pretty large paranormal club on campus. And then last year, I was co-president of the club with fellow investigator Sarah. So the 2 of us were presidents last year, and I was on the board the year before as social media. And so that's definitely a larger club, and occasionally we'll do investigations as a club. There's a few of them on the channel. But yeah, mainly Afterlife Road is like a subset of that. The people that I'm closest with, and that like to do investigations more often. That we go out and we do Afterlife Road. It's usually the same, like 3 or 4 people, and then we like to have one spot that rotates, because I'm a big believer in the smaller the group is, the better it will be.
Yeah, I am too.
Because with the club at school, sometimes we'll have 50 people literally at one cemetery, and that's just you can't
You can accomplish nothing. That's like public ghost hunts.
Public,
when they have 30 people and they're dividing on 3 different floors, it's like you're all contaminating each other.
Yeah, so nothing happens. It's not fun. You're not even friends with everyone.
Yeah.
Some people are like, "Can you please shut up?" But you can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's never fun.
Or get the person that wants to whisper the whole time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the day, it's like some investigations, nothing's gonna. You drive 3 hours, nothing happens.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, sometimes it's just about you want to have fun. You don't want to waste a trip. You don't want to, if you're not friendly and friends with the people you do it with, then it's not going to be a good experience. And if you're just bickering the whole time and can't hear anything, the spirits aren't gonna talk to you. They're just
Right.
who are these people arguing?
A small group, less chance for contamination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Kim has watched a lot of your stuff today, and I
Yeah.
think Bath is one of the places, the
Yeah.
Bath Cemetery that she was.
Yeah, I
Wants to
really,
know more
I
about.
really enjoyed watching your footage on that. So, Bath school bombing, the first bombing in America, 93 years later, still the deadliest. Happened in May 18, 1927. School board member was mad about his taxes had been being raised because he had one of the largest farms. And he was so mad about that, from what I understand, is that at that time they used dynamite a lot. It was pretty normal to have dynamite. So he had put dynamite in the basement of the school and under the basement of his own home. And at 8:45 a.m., it had gone off and killed 38 kids and 6 others. And it still torments the third and fourth generation of that town. They have a big stone with all the names of the people on it, and they usually have a gathering every year, and couldn't do it this year from what I understand because of the pandemic. But tell us what you feel about Bath, Michigan.
Yeah, we oh, Wayne, did I share last time the story about the Uber driver?
I'm not sure. Maybe tell it
It's-
again.
it's-
I
don't-
don't
I-
think you did the Uber driver. so I
Okay,
don't
it's very
remember that one.
memorable, and gosh, this is the one regret I have of our show, is that this was like our third ever investigation, so I didn't think to secretly like record this thing, so there's no video evidence of any of this, and like, so it's not anywhere online. Bath is a small town, like literally 12 miles away from MSU where we go to school. So, of course, that's going to be one of the first places we go because it's so local.
Right.
And it's such a sad story. And we investigated the memorial itself, but that video isn't on our channel because it's just, I felt too disrespectful to.
It was done with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
The way you guys did it, right?
Our investigation was done with a lot of respect, but I just didn't feel it was right to put an investigation of the memorial like online. So we did investigate the memorial twice, and a lot of emotional stuff seemed to happen, and I just, I care a lot about the story. I'm kind of like a Bath expert because I just finished a capstone documentary on the history of Bath. So I spent all of this past year in Bath talking to people at Bath, talking to second and third generation survivors, historians. I got access to actual footage of the aftermath of the explosion that's never been seen by anyone else. I got to hold the watch that Andrew Kehoe wore when he blew up the school.
It could have been worse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually planted enough dynamite under the school to blow up the entire town.
And
But
that didn't go off.
it didn't go off.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was like the entire school, but like only half of it detonated, so it only blew up half the school.
Yeah.
But that didn't blow up the other half, where it could have just taken everybody in the entire school.
Well, like
Right.
modern
If it would've
day
all blown- if both of them would've triggered.
scientists, they look at the
Mhm.
photos of the bombs and say, if that went off, the whole town probably
Oh,
would have
okay. Yeah.
been affected by like the
The
explosion.
shrapnel and everything.
Yeah,
flying,
I think only like a tenth or something
Yeah.
of it actually went off
Right.
because he didn't really know what he was doing. But
Yeah.
Yeah. What he did with his own house too, he killed his wife
and
and brother, right? Did kill his
he
brother?
tied the horses'
horses'
feet
legs together.
and so that they couldn't escape, so he killed the horses. And funny, I mean not funny, but the schools still teach the bombing in Bath, Michigan. The schools still teach it.
Did they rebuild
And-
that school?
They built a school across the street, that where it once stood is now a memorial, and they didn't build anything on that land, but
Well,
across
just
the
have,
street
like, they have,
there's a
like,
new
the
school.
top of like the bell tower. or
Yeah, they have a
something
memorial.
left there as a
Yeah.
memorial.
Yeah, and when they teach it to the kids, they start off slow and they just say like, "Oh, this bad man once lived here." You know, when you're talking to like kindergartners, it's like, "How do you
Right.
teach this?"
Right.
And then it never really hits them until like second or third grade when they say, "Oh yeah, he tied the feet of the horses together," and then they're like, "What? The horses?" And
Oh,
then
no.
Yeah.
that's the thing that always, whenever they say, you know, they include that detail, because then the kids go ballistic and they say, "What kind of sadistic man would tie the feet of the horses together?" And that's the thing that the little kids latch onto and understand. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That's not what gets me. It's the 38 grade school kids.
I know.
6 adults, 58 injured. You know, you have the stats right. And like I said, it could be worse. Now, did they bury the kids all together?
No, it's they're between 2 or 3 cemeteries.
Oh, okay.
And so, anyways, when we investigated the memorial, we so
Is it the Herman or the Henry
yeah, one investigator he saw
gravestone?
a little boy apparition, and then someone else saw a shadow at the same time, so correlated. And then we used like the Ouija board, and it said, spelled out the name Herman,
Yeah.
and that I'm trapped here. And then I said, "Oh, Herman. I wonder if there's a Herman buried here." And then the spirit box said, "My name is Herman." So that correlated both the Ouija board and the spirit box. You know, clearly say a little kid, "My name is Herman."
Right.
And then I said, "Did the investigator see you?" He saw a little boy, and it said, "That's my brother." And I'm like, "Oh, so who's this guy?" But it turns out there was a Herman buried there that had a twin brother. Actually, they may not have been twins. They may have been a year or so apart, but they were brothers, very close brothers. And they passed away in the explosion.
Yeah.
And of all people, 38 children, number of adults, of all people that, the name could have come through, it was the one with a brother that said, "My name's Herman." That was my brother that he saw, though. Of all people, we went through every single grave. These are the only 2 students that on their gravestone, the wrong death date is printed on it. So I don't know what the odds of that
Maybe
happening
they're
are.
not at rest because of
And
that.
if it's a
Some
death
little-
date, that's the shocking thing because it's the big disaster.
Exactly.
You think they would get that
Exactly.
Yeah,
They
how
had the
could you
wrong.
get that
They had the
wrong?
wrong year.
Yeah.
They had May 18th, but 26, not
Yeah.
27.
Okay.
So it said. It
Why
says.
wouldn't they
It says
change
they.
that?
It says they were a year younger than they actually were when they died. So they lost their lives so young, but then their gravestone shaves another year off of that. So I don't know what the odds of that happening are.
Right.
And we went to the cemetery when we found that out just to pay our respects. We didn't have any cameras with us. We had flowers. And this was right at the beginning of winter. And again, same guy who doesn't really know how Michigan winters work all the time. In the winter, it gets darker soon.
Yeah.
So, and when it's winter,
Like 5 o'clock.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when it's winter, it snows a lot more,
Yeah.
so it's hard to know where graves are.
Yeah.
So when we get there at like 3 o'clock trying to find the graves, it's harder for us to do so because of
Right.
the snow. And then it gets dark real fast. And we're not there to investigate. We have no equipment. Nothing. It's not even like sometimes we'll scout out locations without cameras, if it's close by. Not even that. We had nothing on us. Not even all of us had our phones on us. And all of a sudden, we see a shadow in the corner of the cemetery. And we were like, okay, we need to come back here. So we came back when it wasn't snowing anymore to find their graves finally and do a spirit box at their graves to make sure they're at rest, right? We were only there for them. And so many weird things happened that distracted us. Like, we would be walking here, something would happen behind us, and we would turn around. A lot of, footsteps behind us, things getting thrown behind us. We heard, a rock getting thrown at us. And we take out the spirit box, and before we ask any questions, this voice says, please leave or something.
Oh.
And we're like, oh, leave?
Yeah.
And then another voice comes through and it's like, okay, you don't have to leave. And we're like, okay. And then
You'll get that sometimes though, where you, like I've had investigations where you get leave, no, stay.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's for us. A lot of times when I've done it, it's always like the one that's telling you to leave. It usually seems like it's the abusive. A lot of times it's like an abusive one that doesn't want the other one to speak. That doesn't want you to hear what the other one's saying.
Right.
The one that
Get
tells
out.
you to leave. Yeah.
Get
the
out.
other
and
one's
then
sitting there trying to tell you something. The other one's like, no, leave, get out of here, don't listen.
Yeah. One's saying get out, and the other one's saying help.
Yeah.
'Cause we hear help a lot too.
And then we asked how many are here and it said 1,000.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. But then we leave because this like really creepy voice came through. It's like we're dominant. At the same time, investigator Sarah, she saw like what looked like a mist. At the same time, like we're dominant came through. And I'm like, okay. So we left, and then we came back a third time during the day, and we're really focused. And we found the graves. Turns out that one area that all the activity happened behind us, their graves were right there. If the activity hadn't happened behind us, we would have walked 2 graves ahead and saw their graves. So I don't know. And then we did a spirit box, and we're very comforted because nothing happened at their graves.
Yeah.
So it seemed like they weren't stuck there at least. So that was definitely one of the most emotional investigations we've done. So that's
you guys
why
did it with great respect.
Yeah.
I really like how you did it.
That was one of the earliest signs that we were good at it. Not to like
Right, and you're
talk
getting
too highly of
responses.
myself, but the Uber story. The first time we went to Bath, we didn't have anyone to drive us, so we ordered an Uber to take us to the park. And it's just a random park. It's like Bath Park. And we get an Uber, and he turns the car off as soon as we get in. And he's like a bigger guy, and he's old, doesn't have any hair, and he's big, like 6 foot. And he turns the car off, and he looks at us, and he says, "Why are you going to this park?" And I'm like, "Why is the car off? Why are you interrogating us? Why aren't you taking us to the park?" And he goes, I go, "Oh, we're filming something. We did it a lot. We're just like, we're just journalism students." And then to save the questions, and he goes, "Well, I'm a spirit mapper." And this is our 3rd investigation ever. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm like,
I don't either.
What?
I don't
Spirit
either.
mapper? Then he goes, he goes, "Me and my buddies at church, we drive around Michigan, and we map demonic hotspots." And he's big into his church, and he says he's spoken to God before, and he's has a connection with like he's like one of those people that he believes he's spoken with God, and he's like really into his church. He lives with all of his church buddies, and he takes this stuff very seriously. And he was telling us that he maps demonic places in Michigan, and he tells us that the park is on the scale, but not at the top of the scale.
Oh.
So we should be fine. Just whatever we do not go to Pregoris. And I go, "How do you spell that?" And he goes, "Priggoris. Do not go there." And I'm like, okay, cool. When you tell an investigator like, "Don't go to a place because I'm too scared," and this is a grown man, you're gonna go there next. So so we did go there next. But anyways,
Yeah. Hey, this is the fastest our time has ever expired, believe it or not.
it's
But,
already 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then I know you mentioned Ouija board, so just real quick, did you have good success using the Ouija board to communicate with the dead? Yes or no?
I never had anything really come through.
Well, I know you kind of scared me when I saw you using it. I don't know, Kim, if you saw them guys using it in any of their stuff, but apparently there's some bad things and some bad signs on the Ouija board, and I want the people to know them. And because you had some of them things happen on your films, going off the board, a figure 8, counting down backwards, alphabet A to Z, alphabet Z to A, and trying to release, repeating a statement is a sign of danger, and it suggests that if you're going to use the Ouija board, you have a Bible or a cross, a pentagram, some kind of a religious symbols near you if you're going to use a Ouija board. But the worst thing about the Ouija board,
Demons.
Zozo.
Yeah.
We had Zozo once come
What?
through,
But
but
I do want to. Zozo itself started with, if you follow the backtrack of it, it was a Led Zeppelin fan. Zozo is Jimmy Page.
Oh,
That's where Zozo came from.
yeah,
Jimmy Page. And this guy, he was on Ghost Adventures, which Ghost Adventures has started so much false information about the paranormal. Sorry, it has. Dybbuk boxes. Like Zach's big thing, Dybbuk boxes are a hoax if you go back to the original person that started it. But the Zozo thing, now there could be demons that are using that name because now people are afraid of it, so they're
Right.
using that name. But Zozo is not real.
yeah,
Zozo is Jimmy Page.
yeah. Because we got Zozo once, and
Mhm.
you know they say if it comes through as a demon, and all these things are supposed to happen.
I think there may be demonic entities now that people know that name, that they're
Exactly.
using that
and
name.
no, nothing
brings fear.
nothing else happened besides
Mhm.
Zozo. So we're like, yeah, this isn't Zozo. If it was this powerful demon, other stuff would be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is Zozo is the one most talked about Ouija board anything.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone that uses a Ouija board subconsciously knows Zozo.
Yeah.
So
Right.
subconsciously, if it goes to a Z, you're
Yeah.
probably going to go subconsciously to an O. Just because you know, oh, is this Zozo? You know? And if you get that thought in your head, could this be Zozo?
Your mind's
You
more
can't
likely to
control
do
it.
Yeah.
You subconsciously go to the O.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then Z, and then O.
Yeah, I actually read about that. It's called pseudoscience. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, there's a
Where
lot of
it's actually
pseudoscience out there.
the action of the Ouija board can be explained by unconscious movements controlling the pointer. So when they say, "Oh, I'm not making this thing move," in some aspects you are,
Yeah.
because
that's what,
unconsciously you're doing that.
And that's the same problem too with like the ghost box too, because your subconscious is trying to hear things. You're going, what's
Right.
your name? That's why I like more like the Estes session, because you have one person that's blind and doesn't know what's
Exactly.
going on, so you're not listening for that because they don't know what you're asking. You
Right.
know.
Yep.
I think the Ouija board is probably the worst of the
Mm-hmm.
equipment to use, because on a subconscious level, like even with Spirit Box, there's a lot of subconscious, but at least it's not, you know, you as a human are not physically manipulating it. You know, it's a machine.
Mm-hmm.
With the Ouija board, it's your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control your hand because, you know, you got all the neurons, everything that operates subconsciously. So you're using all your senses and the physical touch subconsciously. So it's so hard to figure out what's real with the Ouija board. We
Right.
only really use it as a last resort.
well, in the 1920s, Marion Spore Bush, she was a spirit painter. She used the Ouija board and atomic writing to communicate with the dead, and
Automatic.
automatic writing. And she did the paintings too by using the Ouija board and communicating with the dead. But you guys are going to Hell's Bridge. That's an upcoming thing here, and I want to leave with this because we're out of time. But it's a quote out of this book here by Christine McGuire, and it's about Hell's Bridge when she was there. She's a former witch, medium, a ghost hunter, and this is a quote from when she was at Hell's Bridge. As I stepped off the rickety metal extension onto the grassy bank, I became dizzy. Evil oozed from the ground. The air seemed thick. My skin itched with a repugnant loathing. I kind of freaked out. My body was trembling. As I started babbling what I was seeing for anyone who would listen, Christine went on to say, she gave it a name. She described a little girl. She gave the girl a name, and the description was confirmed later by another medium at a different date. When Christine returned home that night, her dog was terrified of her, and it went hiding. I had a similar experience when I got a thing in me at one of my investigations, where the dog that I had been petting, all of a sudden, after the thing got in me, started growling at me. So I think what you guys are going to experience tonight at Hell's Bridge could be very real. It might not have anything to do with the legend, but like Brandon was saying, there could be some force there. So be careful and use protection. You know, ghost hunters out there, use protection. Watch the films that Ben's putting out with Afterlife Road Paranormal. They do it respectfully, and you can learn from those guys. And then maybe you'll be on soon, or else on our radio show, and you can talk about what you guys experienced tonight when you're at Hell's Bridge. But that's it, guys. We're done. Good show. It went so fast.
It did.
Yeah, blink of the eye.
Yeah. So that's it. Peace out.
The opinions expressed in the preceding program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.